WCCO, always. Love doesn't have to.
In actuality, by the airflow over the car, there's a dead spot just over the hood about an inch and a half high that there's very low airflow on. So actually the scoop's not very effective because it doesn't catch the fast-moving air that's above that. Whereas the cowl induction, it doesn't look as impressive or as effective, but it actually might be more than this one. Okay, talking more about airflow around the car. The front spoiler, actually, a lot of cars don't have these, but it produces a downforce on the front end to give the car better handling, and it keeps the airflow out from underneath to prevent lifting up or floating, which you'd notice going down the highway at high speeds. And in the back of the car, the rear spoiler is supposed to produce downforce to keep the rear end of the car on the ground, and this particular one is a reverse wing type design to produce downforce, whereas the wing flipped over would produce lift. But this is kind of an idealistic, and it wouldn't take effect until super high speeds. You can also see that the Camaro had a similar design, giving the same effect to handling, as well as the rear spoiler in the back producing downforce on the rear end. For some of you that may not understand how an engine, the combustion of an engine works, we'll do a quick overview so everybody gets the gist of it. We'll start with the carburetor here. This is where the gas is fed through here and through the jets where it is mixed with air, and your air-fuel mixture comes through the bottom into your intake, goes into the intake manifold, and then through these ports into the head of the car. Now from the head, the mixture goes into the combustion chamber, which is variable depending on the size of the head. And here's where it comes into the chamber and is ignited, and that's what drives the pistons. Back to your gas laws and pressures that you learned in chemistry, and it's the combustion of the combustion of the gas in the combustion chamber. And this is how compression ratio is determined by the top of the piston. It creates a smaller, the higher combustion or compression ratio piston creates a smaller combustion chamber, so the pressure is higher, where a lower one, the pressure is lower. This is an example of a high. This would be an 11-to-1, which is extremely high for most production engines. And this piston top is an example of a lower one, pretty much probably 9-to-1, 9.5-to-1. So this would be able to burn lower octane gas, where this one would take extremely high octane. Okay, we're going to talk about some applications for metals here on your different engine components. Now this is the intake manifold off of a big block 396 GM product, and comes back to the characteristics for your elements on the periodic table. And this is cast iron. Now iron's pretty heavy, dense metal, and which makes this very heavy, which is why this is a more preferred intake manifold, which is also for a big block 396. And this is made out of aluminum. It's a whole lot lighter. It's extremely lighter. And it's also effective with the air-fuel mixture, because when you're looking for horsepower, the cooler the air-fuel mixture, the better. So you want to have the lower specific heat of the metal to dissipate heat faster. As you can see, not all of the cars look as nice as those that you've seen before. This here is a project car, 1967 RSSF Camaro, 396, 3¼ horse, convertible. As you can see, there's a lot of rust forming here on the car. This rust forms when iron combines with iron in the metal combines with oxygen in the air and forms iron oxide, which eventually rusts the car and leads to big holes. So what we're going to have to do with this car is cut these quarter panels off of here and
end up welding on all new sheet metal. If this were not a big block convertible and stuff, it wouldn't be actually worth all of the work that it would be to do, because if you see a little bit of rust on the outside of the car, the underneath is even worse. As all you Minnesotans know too, salt, which they dump on the roads in the wintertime, it ends up speeding up the rust process. We're going to go meet our bodywork and paint specialist, Larry. Hi, Larry.
Hi. Hey, Mike.
Tell us about what you're doing here.
Well, this is a 60 shield convert, and I've put the paint, I finished the bodywork, put the paint on it already, so now I'm putting, buffing the stainless and putting new chrome on it and so forth to get it back. So I'm going to have skirts on it, Continental kit, 348 and dual antennas, and it's going to be a really neat thing. But first, before we get to this level, we have to do a lot of prep work. And this is a 71 Trans Am that's in progress. And first of all, of course, we take it down to bare metal and then use fillers to fill in any little dents or imperfections. And some people call that Bondo. And you mix catalyst with it to help speed the reaction so it gets hard. And we usually use Bondo or fiberglass, and both of those you have to use a catalyst with so that they harden fast. And then you spread them on, and you take them off, and you work it down to a smooth finish. And then we use an Epoxy Primer, which again, you have a catalyst that you mix. There's two parts to it. One's the catalyst, and then one's the primer, and of course the catalyst makes the primer harden. So we spray that on, and then apply several coats and work it down so it's nice and smooth, of course. And then the Epoxy Primer is really the best primer on the market because it has really good cohesive characteristics, and I guess it includes, or it has a lot of NHs and OHs and COHs. Okay, so it makes it stick to things really well. Okay, and then we'll sand, once we let this sit and dry really well, and then we'll sand it so that the paint, the sanding makes the paint stick to the primer. Okay, so then we're ready to paint. Okay, now these cars have been painted already, of course, so all the process has been gone through, and then the paint has been applied. And this happens to be an acrylic enamel. There's also synthol enamel, and there's lacquer paints, and then of course there's latexes. That's more for house paint. But this one is a base coat, clear coat enamel, and of course we paint mainly red pigment. But to make the different colors, they put different things into the paint, like titanium, calcium, lead, iron, cobalt, chromium. These types of things make the different colors. So the paints are just, I mean, it's just amazing the amount of chemicals that you have to dump together in order to paint a car nowadays. So the red would have different chemicals in than the white, of course. And then there's a clear enamel that's painted on top, and of course that would have different chemicals in. And of course they have a really bad odor when you paint, so you have to make sure you use a fresh air system, because you can't inhale these type of chemicals. They'll have an adverse effect on your health.
Trimethylpentane or isooctane. This is an octane, has a high anti-knock value. This ratio between the two is the fuel number. Both of these compounds are very similar in melting point, boiling point, density, and vaporization, so they mix well. The higher the fuel mixture number, the more 2,2,4 trimethylpentane there is. Using the proper octane eliminates any pinging that may occur in your engine. The required octane number is determined by your compression ratio.
Alright, now we're going to talk a little bit about the chemistry that's involved in making rubber for your tires. Actually, rubber, like in a liquid form. So what they do to make your tires is add sulfur to it. They add to the hydrocarbon chain that's involved with rubber to make like a solid rubber that's hard, and that's called vulcanization. What it ends up doing is making a nice stiff rubber that will outlast, like, obviously, or that will last.
I'm going to talk about tire pressure now, how it relates to your gas laws, the relationship between pressure and temperature in the tires. And this isn't as relevant in street cars as it is in race cars. However, if you've noticed, the pressure goes down in the wintertime because the temperature goes down. So in the summertime you have to pump them back up again. And when it gets really hot, you have problems with the tire expanding too much and you get too high air pressure in your tires. And in race cars, actually, they run a thinner rubber so that the heat, the friction between the tire and the road builds up more heat, and they'll actually run lower air pressures to start, and it'll build up and expand in the tire. And that's all based on your gas laws.
Chloride. This bottle is also made of polyvinyl chloride. This bottle's made of polyethylene. All of the things that I use to clean my car are made of polymers.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed learning how chemistry affects your car, and maybe you can put it to some use in your regular life too.
Oh look, this is made out of polyvinyl chloride. See, this is... Alright, you guys can't... This is made out of polyvinyl chloride. Pants. Khaki pants. We're going to start out by taking a look at Miss Sweetall's car here now. This here is a 1967 Rally Sport Camaro convertible. See the Rally Sport option with the hideaway headlights in the front, they open up with electricity when you turn the lights on. And this is it also has the front spoiler like Steve talked about earlier in the film. That's for air flow underneath the car. Miss Sweetall's car also has rally wheels, 14x6. Now we're going to take a look at the inside. This is a very highly optioned car. It has an automatic transmission in it, a power glide, air conditioning, a power top on the thing, power windows, deluxe interior. It also has power steering and brakes, which we'll see under the hood later. It has every power option that was offered in 1967 on the Camaro. Let's take a look at the back. See the Rally Sport? They offered backup lights below the bumper. And then you get both brake lights and blinkers in the top lights. The standard car doesn't have that. It also has the rear spoiler, which Steve mentioned earlier. Now we're going to go take a look at the motor. Notice the cowl induction hood. We also talked about that in the film too. Under the hood, not much special. It's got a 327 cubic inch V8 in it, 210 horse, which is the stock one with the 2-barrel on it. And notice you can see here the air conditioning, power brakes over there, power steering down here. Pretty full underneath the hood for 1967. Going for a ride in this Sweet All's car. Notice all the power of the wimpy 210 horse 327. Watch the speed there, Miss Sweet All.